keeping up with what's happening here in the state of Arizona, what's important here, and making a visit to Washington, D.C. to speak with the White House and some of the new cabinet positions is our own Senate President Warren Petersen. He joins us now. Mr. President, thanks for doing this.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
So what's the agenda? What are you going to be discussing? Gas prices here in Arizona. The reason why I'm starting off with this is we know the volatility of gas prices in Arizona. Is that going to be part of the discussion when you talk with them?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of things: land, water, air quality, gas, lawsuits that Arizona's involved with. We've got a whole host of things that we're anxious to speak with the Trump administration about. You know, for the last 4 years, we've been constantly just battling with the Biden administration with a lot of things that have made no sense. Now we have a President Trump who is common sense, and we feel like we can. There's a whole lot of things that can improve here in Arizona with just a few changes with some of these federal agencies.
When you look at, obviously, with the first things that come to mind here is obviously the air quality issue, but isn't it true that Arizona uses a blend of fuel and we're way above the standard? We could be within federal standards and use a different blend of fuel that may calm down some of the volatility that we see in Arizona. Is that something that could be looked into?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about water. I can give you an example of just a couple things on water that would be huge for Arizona's water security. First of all, right now you can take CRP water from the CAP and put it into the SRP canal, but you cannot take water from the SRP canal and put it into the CAP canal. We need permission from the federal government to do that. That is something right now. SRP has a surplus of water that can be used around the valley. That is one of the things we simply just need EPA to say, you know, we approve, and that helps us with our water security. Another thing, of course, is the Bartlett Dam, raising the Bartlett Dam. Money's there to do it. The resources are there to do it, but there's a long federal process. That is something where we can, again, you know, bring Arizona's water security, and it's just something where government's in the way. There's many applications that have just been sitting on the Biden administration's desk, and we feel like now with the Trump administration who wants to get things done, a lot of these projects can get going.
Yeah, another part of this is Arizona is such a big part of our economy is mining, and we specifically Resolution Copper is a mine that's waiting for approval. Is that something? Does the state get involved in talking to the federal government about approval for this? We know that we don't do any uranium mining of any significance, and we're also talking about building more nuclear power. Are you going to get into some of the details in that, or is this more of a direction about water and about the air quality?
No, I think anything and everything. I mean, we're going to be talking about land, water, air. We're going to be talking about litigation that we're dealing with. But no, we will definitely broach all those issues, and especially on the red tape. I think there's, you know we can be good stewards of our land and still cut some of this red tape, and it really boils down to them processing permits quicker and even just being responsive and answering and communicating. So, yeah, all of those things will be discussed.
Arizona Senate President Warren Petersen is joining us. And then one last thing on this issue before we shift to the Attorney General is obviously what we saw happen in California with the wildfires and the devastation. We know that the fire danger here in Arizona every year is very, very high. And there's always been an argument about forest management and fire preparedness. Is that a part of the discussion? And are there any inroads in the new administration into reasonable and responsible forest management?
Yeah, I believe they will completely manage it, and we want to let them know that we can be partners in that. One of the things I'm really interested in talking about is the Enabling Act and what can be done to deliver on the promise of Arizona has 70% federal land. What can be done on the promise of delivering those federal lands to Arizona, because we are better stewards. We can create more prosperity with the land, and we will use the land better.
So let's shift because I know that another part of the conversation is going to be with the Attorney General. What are the expectations of that conversation? Is it going to be border related? And what are your goals in that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we want to let them know that we want to cooperate however we can with them on keeping Arizona safe and border security. But, we also there are several lawsuits that Arizona has been involved in, and going forward, the Department of Justice, of course, will be involved, and their involvement in what they do makes a big difference. We can see, I can tell you as someone who's been at the legislature for a while, whenever I run into something and it's completely broken, and I say, why is it this way? When I dig into it, at the root of it, there's either a bad ruling from a lawsuit or it's some federal regulation. So we're going to talk to them about some of these lawsuits that the position of the Biden administration hasn't made sense, and as we move forward, how we can deal with those.
When are these meetings going to take place?
So these will happen tomorrow and Wednesday. So
when you
the next couple of days.
Before I let you go, I want to shift just for a moment. I know that you've been involved in affordable housing and some legislation. So before I let you go, can you give me an update on where we are in some of these things, negotiation in the legislature, and is there movement with the governor on some things? Do you think there's going to be more done at the legislature level for affordable housing, and what can be done?
Well, I hope so. I mean, we did some minor things last session. I'm hopeful that we can get some more substantive things done. Those have we've moved some bills out of the Senate. They're sitting in the House to be heard. There's some bills in the House that are in the Senate. So bills really won't start hitting the governor's desk for probably another week and a half, 2 weeks. And so we are still, working through the process of getting the bills to her desk. But I do feel that she will sign. I do feel that she will sign some of these. Most of these have been bipartisan.
And I'd like to get your opinion, if you don't mind. I had a conversation with the CEO and founder of Axon about the issue that's happening with them in Scottsdale. But then I also had on Representative Chaplick to talk about his opposition to the pieces of legislation that are there. Can you just give us an update on where that legislation is?
Yeah, so there were two bills introduced, one in the House, one in the Senate. The one in the House didn't go anywhere. The one in the Senate made it out of committee. It was clear that we didn't have votes for the floor. We don't put bills on the floor that don't have the votes. Every once in a while you'll see a bill die on the floor, but it's rare, just for obvious reasons. Procedurally, you can't. It would be very inefficient to do something like that. So you always want to have an idea of your votes. So currently, it doesn't have the support to get out of the Senate. That's kind of what I can tell you where it's at right now. They're trying to work more angles, from what I understand. Still trying to move the bill, but as of now, it doesn't have the support to move.
I always appreciate the time with you. I wish you well in the meetings, and I hope when you get if you don't mind, come back and talk to the audience about the meetings and how they went and what you expect to come from them.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Thanks,
right.
Mike.
Thanks. I appreciate it. That is the Senate President Warren Petersen joining us for a few moments.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.